I got the back valance off. I pulled the calipers off either side. I disconnected the axle from the brake drum or from the brake rotor. And I think I'm going to drop the whole damn thing out. You know, it's like a disease. It's contagious. You just keep taking stuff apart and you're like, oh, that doesn't look good, and I need to take that off, and I'll take that off and take that off. Oh man. So let's take a look at what I've done. Yeah, there's the oil pans removed. You guys have seen that. Since then, I pulled out all the coolant pipes. There and there. Pulled out the gear shift rods, disconnected those. I'm rotating. On this side, pulled out the oil cooler. Ow, just hit my head. Pulled off the exhaust system. And I have disconnected the front of those diagonal link chassis bars. So I am well on my way to yanking this bad boy out. But here's the catch. You can't take it out of the top because the frame rail goes across just above the transaxle. To drop it out of the bottom, you have to disconnect the lower links. And on this car, the upper links are the drive shaft. So all that's got to come out. And to take the lower links out, I need to take the tires off, and the car cannot be supported by the wheels. I am going to put some blocking across right there. I've got some 4x4s, and I'm going to lower the lift, jack up the back of the car high enough to get those blocks under there, and then lower it down onto the blocks. Then I can whip the wheels off and take apart the whole rear suspension, and then drop the whole thing out the bottom. That's the plan. I do have an engine hoist, so if I get the lift low enough, I can grab the top with the engine hoist and then put the jack under the bottom and then slowly lower this thing out of the bottom. And I am going to do it with just myself. So I am going to prove that this can be a one-man job. So it's all for the best, you know, because I was thinking I have a new clutch for this thing and a new pressure plate. So the only way to get those in is to pull the gearbox off, and it just makes a lot of sense to pull the whole thing. I also have all new bushings for the suspension, new U-joints. That stuff's been sitting in a box in my shed for a couple years. So I wasn't going to put it on. I was just going to get the motor running and then sell the car, but I might as well just take it all out and have everything in the rear end of the car, you know, as new. And then it'll give me a chance to paint all the parts when I take them out. So that's the plan. Next step for me now is to lower the lift down, jack up the car, get it up on the boards, and then take the wheels off. Well, it's been a couple hours. Got some progress. I put the car up on those two 4x4s. It's resting right under the two jack points on the body, but also tubular section of the frame right there. That allowed me to take off the whole rear suspension, which is awesome. I still have the radius arms on there. I need to take those off. I've got everything else disconnected. The only thing holding the transmission in now are the bolt right there and right through there, and of course the two motor mounts. So that's it. I got those 4 bolts. I think I'm going to clean up for the night and tackle that one in the morning when I'm fresh and think through that process, because I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go yet. I don't know. But, you know, I figure it out as I go. Let's take a look at the side while we're here. There's a good shot. You can see that suspension's out of there. It is down here on the floor. So I just removed as a unit the hubs, the lower link, and the outboard axle shafts, all as one unit. It's real easy, and then I can disassemble those on the bench. Hey, this is interesting. So passenger side, the upper shock mount, there's a bolt right up in there, and it pushes through. You have to take the battery out. This is the bottom of the battery box, and it pushes through the hole in the battery box, and that's the only way to get the shock out. So, yeah, great engineering. Mechanics at Lotus must have freaking hated working on these cars. The one on the driver's side was a lot easier. I didn't have to contend with any of that. Oh, it's coming along. Hey guys, day 3 or 4 on the 79 Lotus Esprit. I don't know, I'm losing track. But I got the motor transmission out yesterday. I'm going to show you some of that, and let me show you what I'm taking off today, because I think I'm just about finished with the disassembly on this car, at least as far as I'm going to take it. So the end is in sight. Got the engine and transmission out this morning. Always a fun job. Not quite sure how I did it. Certainly wasn't any method recommended. And I would not recommend the way I did it. But it's out. So check this out. I'm glad I took it out. Like I said, I had a clutch in the shed I've been holding on to for a couple years. And so I took the transmission apart, and the secondary shaft is stuck in the clutch. And it came right out of the transmission, no circlip remaining whatsoever. I'm not sure the condition of the spigot bearing in there, but if I look at, ooh, that looks bad. That is supposed to be round, and you can just see, I was talking about that in the other video, how it just mills away, and look at that. If you guys can see that, just milled away on that input shaft. And that's what happens when the spigot bearing, when the circlip, did I say spigot bearing earlier? I don't know, it's early. That's what happens when the circlip gives way and the secondary clutch shaft gets thrown into the back of the engine. I wonder if I can see in here. Oh, maybe some milling. Maybe a little bit of milling action there. I don't see a spigot bearing. I'm not sure what I'm seeing, but that's not what it's supposed to look like. All right, well, I got to take this flywheel off, pull that crank, and see what I'm up against. Woo! All right, here's what's left. All right, cool. So today's task is to get these radius arms out. Real simple. They're 7/16 inch bolts. There's a bolt that goes through here, and then there's a nut on the outside of that. And what I want to be super careful of is your car's alignment is dependent upon the shims that are in there. And I don't know if you can see that, but these right here, those are the shims. So right here I've got 2 shims and a bunch of washers. So I need to make sure that I pay close attention to that and put these back in exactly the same way. Otherwise, the alignment of the car in the back would be off a little bit. Left and right are always different, so keep left and right the same. And then also there's a bushing in here, or a, yeah, it's like a polyurethane bushing for the radius arm mount. And I have new ones of those, so I'm going to replace those, come back with new nuts, bolts, powder coat the metal, and should be just like new. Oh, there I took the motor mount off. You can see there's the bolt head I got to get to. And then on the other side, I've got the heat shield to contend with. I want to get that off, just a couple 10mm bolts. There's the motor mount. I'm going to zip those 4 bolts off, 13mm bolts. And then the same thing, I'll get the head of the bolt that holds the front of the radius arm on, and then spin off the nut on the back. And then the radius arms will come out, and they will go out for sandblasting and powder coating. That's where I am with that. So here are those diagonal bars. I actually didn't take those out to drop the motor, believe it or not. They weren't in the way. Let me show you this side. But some interesting stuff here. It looks like the original bracketry from Lotus may have been broken there. That should be a complete circle all the way around, and it's not. And on this one, I don't know what's going on here. If this is factory or what, but it looks like there was at some point something here, but my diagonal is connected to here. So I don't know if that's but you know what's funny? The bracket. See the way the bracket is shaped? It's almost like that was meant to be there. So I need to do some research on that because I have no idea what's up with that. The other side doesn't have that same configuration to the bracket where it pops out. So I don't know if that's stock or what, but that is certainly suspect, right? Anyway, I do have a new diagonal that's coming back. I've got stainless steel headers that are going on here. And I had to get one of these that was in a slightly different configuration so the headers would clear it. So that one's going in the garbage anyway. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm going to keep taking stuff apart. And we'll pick up at some other point. Finally! Stripped everything out of this that I need to. I'm not going any farther. I was looking at the frame and it's not bad. So you see, there's surface rust, right? Some surface rust, but there's no real corrosion, like bad, you know, cancer anywhere. All the metal's still very much intact, which I'm happy about, you know? I guess this car had been in dry storage for 20 years and you can definitely tell. There's just the corrosion has not really gotten to it. Especially up in here. I mean, look at that. For a 79, guys, I think that looks really good. Hell, that looks better than one of the 88s I took apart. So my plan is, you know, redo these brake lines. That's all miscellaneous minor stuff. Get that hose out of there. Clean up all this stuff. But I've got some POR 15 coming. I'm not doing a full restoration on this car, but I am going to scrape off the rust as much as I can and then coat the frame with a nice coat of PR 15 or 14, whatever it is. And that's a rust inhibitor, and you can put that on rust and it just encapsulates it so it will not continue to rust out, and it will hold the integrity of the frame for years to come. So, yeah, teardown's done. Woo! Good stuff. So I lied, at least to myself. I said I was not going to take the Lotus down any farther, and I just can't help myself. Got the engine out in the back, and I got the suspension out. And I'm looking at the gas tanks, and I just couldn't put this thing back together again without checking those tanks. I wanted to make sure the bottoms weren't rotted out like so many in the past have been. So I've continued on with disassembly. My gosh. Bright side is I have started assembling many things. It's morning now, so I'm going to jump in there and pull out the driver's side gas tank. I'm going to film it so you guys can see what it kind of takes to get it out. It's harder than the 88. It's harder than the S3s. So the S2 gas tank is a harder one to get out than the S3. You really got to kind of like twist, and it only comes out one way. It's a challenge. So instead of me talking about it, let's just dive into the path. All right, here we go. We're on the passenger side. Just going to disconnect the fuel sending unit. Take this harness out of the way. And here's what I'm up against. I got the filler tube, I've got the vent tube, I've got this panel to deal with, and I also have the seat belt to deal with. So I'm going to take the seat belt off first. Okay, that's the cover. There's a 17 millimeter bolt head in here that holds the seatbelt on. And there's a little access panel right here that you need to pop off. That's the access panel. Inside there is 17mm bolt. Short bolts. And that pops right off. Right now I'm just going to pull that seat belt out a little bit so I can rest that up there out of the way. You know, this is one cable I've been noticing. It almost looks like an antenna cable. It could be. Honestly, I'm not. It wasn't connected to anything. I'm not 100% sure what that's for. At least at this point. All right, so I got that. I'm going to unscrew these. You know what happens is these are they've been in there a long time. The rubber is not very pliable anymore. It's super hard, so my chance of twisting this off are slim to none. Under here, I'm going to take this trim piece off. There's 2 rivets, and I have to drill those 2 rivets out because I have to be able to manipulate this panel. So I'm drilling these rivets out. It's really helpful because I've struggled with them in the past. It's helpful to have a sharp drill bit, and to, when you the drill speed, have it very, very slow, and just slowly work the head of that off. If you have a dull drill bit and you do full speed, what you're going to do is you're just going to hone it out, I guess, and then your drill bit's not going to bite well, and your rivet may start turning on you, and that's a real pain. Then you'd have to pull out the grinder. So I'm just recessing these a little bit. All right, and that pops out. Now, I've kind of looked at this panel closely, and what I believe they did from the factory, because I can't get those 2 rivets in the back off, I believe they riveted those in before the windows were installed, and that rivet is in that groove behind the sealant for the window. And so to get to those, I'd have to either take the window out, or I could grind them out from back here, but I don't want to do that because I won't be able to get it back in. So I'm going to leave the panel like this, and then I'm going to go on the outside of the car, and I'm going to unscrew the I think it's 4 Phillips head screws that hold the filler neck to the body. So I'm going to hit that now. The gas cap's held on to the filler tube by this little chain, and I want to get that out of the way. So I'm just going to try to work. There's an eyelet that's pressed shut. I want to open that up enough to be able to pull it off. Might be able to do this side more easily. Yeah, there we go. All right. So all I did was open up that eyelet on the chain, and the cap came off. Because I'm going to be pushing the filler tube back through the chassis, the body. And then I've got 4 Phillips head screws. All right. And then lastly, there's a ring around here which bolts it securely to the body, and I got to get that up without damaging the paint. And it's pretty tight. I'm going to go in through the screw hole, see if I can grab the back of it. There we go. All right. Start to come a little bit. I got a plastic pry bar. There. Okay, that's the ring that holds the filler tube on from the outside. So now I'm done out here. This will push back into the inside of the car. So let's go back to the inside. Next thing I want to do is pull this away from the body. And I imagine it's going to be a little bit tight. It's been there for a long time, so probably going to use a little force, but it does come away. There. All right, cool. There it is. So now I'm going to hit these clamps that hold on the vent tube and the filler tube. Well, that's interesting. Instead of loosening the clamp, the screw just came all the way out. That's cool, whatever. All right, got that loose enough. I'm going to see if I have any movement here at all. I'm going to try to pull this out of there, or this off of there. Oh, I'm getting some movement there. That's good. However, I will not be able to get it off unless I get the vent tube off. Oh, slowly coming off. There we go. All right. So now I should be able to use this movement to slide this off. There we go. All right, so I got the filler tube, and on the inside there's just that rubber seal, and I'm going to try to salvage that as well, because it looks pretty good. I can reuse that. Whew. All right, let's see if we'll loosen up this other clamp on the vent tube. All right, let's see if I have any movement here. These vent tubes have really conformed now, and they're harder to get off than the filler tube. I don't want to fight with that if I don't have to. All right, so here's what I want to do. I'm going to get this blower hose out of the way. Okay, so now, the reason I drilled these rivets out, I want to push that back in as far as I can. All right, that's going to give me some extra room to get the tank out. There's a bolt down here, I think it's 15 millimeter, that holds the tank to the body. It's not a 15 millimeter, it's a 13 millimeter. All right, that's out. Now, the tank is moving freely, but your work is not done. This is the part I dread. I have no idea how this is going to go. None whatsoever. These little tabs kind of get in the way. These are the Velcro, very, very early style Velcro receivers for that wooden panel that sits up here. It slides into this slot and then just Velcros down onto there. I tried to get these brackets off on the other side. These brackets are welded to the structural cross body here on the chassis. The only way to get them off would be to take this whole structural cross member off, and I don't want to do that. I didn't have to do it on the other side. So enough talk. Let's give this thing a shot. See, I'm fighting right there. It's butted up against that seatbelt mount. Now, on the other one, I had to, at this point, this one's tighter than the other side. I don't know. All right, so I can reach down, I can feel the bottom of the tank. Now I gotta find a way to manipulate this so it actually comes out. see that panel, right? Without drilling out these rivets, there's no way that gas tank's coming out with that panel in place. So I think I got it now. You know what I'm concerned about? I want to know what this looks like under here. This is where they rust out, guys. This damn foam that Lotus used, it holds water like a sponge. And what happens in these cars is the rear quarter windows can leak, and the water gets down on this sponge and it just sits there and it eats away at your tank. And I think oh, come on. I mean, it really was a poor idea of Lotus. And you know, they didn't change it. Like you think the S3s, it's the same crap. Right? I don't know about the S4s. It looks like they coated the bottom of the tank where this foam sat. You see this white? It's almost like they put some kind of impenetrable barrier. Maybe they had an idea that these things, that would be a weak spot. But guys, this tank looks good. Well, the Lotus gods were looking out for me today. Take a look at this. Bottom of both tanks. Remarkably good condition. Remarkably good condition. Man, I'm blown away. I was really fearful. And like I said, even on the 88s, these things were trashed and I had to put in stainless steel tanks. So I'm super happy. These are way more than salvageable. These things are in fantastic condition. We'll get these cleaned up, sandblasted, pressure tested, and sealed on the inside, and then put them back in the car. And woo, I just dodged a $800, well, with shipping and tax, probably a $900 bullet. So nice deal. Here's a shot of the top of the tanks. You know what's funny? So the pad sat here and not there. Same here, the pad sat here and not there. And where the pad sat, the metal's in better shape than where it wasn't. So this was exposed in the car, right? That doesn't get covered by that pad, and that's where I have some surface rust, is only in those areas. I would have thought it would have been the complete opposite, but tanks are in good shape.